Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is marketing to probate leads. A probate lead is a potential seller who has inherited a property after the passing of a relative. Now, when I first heard of investors marketing directly to the heirs of a recently deceased homeowner, I thought it was disgusting. What I didn't realize is that the family may really need help in this situation. Unfortunately, inheriting a property can be a burden to some who are unable to take on the financial responsibility of a property. There are several list providers out there, and purchasing a probate list can be expensive, so I have learned to go straight to the source. Probate leads are public record and can be accessed by anyone, well, anyone that has a lot of time on their hands. All you need to do is go to your county courthouse and ask where probates are stored. You then must go through each paper file, I said paper, people, and find the contact information for the heirs. If the deceased is survived by a spouse, I'm not going to waste any more time on that file because the spouse will most likely continue to live in the property. However, if the heirs live out of state, you have a greater opportunity to assist this family since you are local to the property. As far as the proper marketing material to send to the heirs, that's completely up to you. I personally would never send a fake ass sounding sympathy card with, oh, and P.S., I want to buy this house. Since it's a smaller list, I will send my generic letter simply stating we are looking to buy houses in that neighborhood. This will also make your letter stand out from the other, quote, sorry for your loss, unauthentic postcards. So, if you are looking to earn that superhero's cape and help a family, you may want to consider probate leads. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us return guest Bud Evans. Bud is an investor and licensed agent. He currently operates in New Jersey and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He recently shifted his focus from flipping and wholesaling to the commercial multifamily market, which is why I have brought him on the show today. So welcome back to the show, Bud Evans.
Good to be here.
Yay. And I know we don't have too much time here, but I mean, I know you have some titles here. You're an investor, you're a licensed agent, but since our last recording, we actually met in person and did a conference together. We did this educational program, and it's discovered that we are now work husband and work wife because we coach together. So, and as much as that is such a great title to have, Jen Josie's work husband, you have a better title now, and it's retired. You just retired, so congratulations to you.
Thank you very much. 34 years in the military was too much.
Well, I thank you for your service. And yeah, their loss is our gain because now we get you focused 100% on real estate. And I have some major questions for you today. But do you want to give any quick background on you? Because I know we are limited on time, but I have so many important questions. But go ahead, tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I am a retired police officer. I did 13 years in Radnor Township. I'm also a retired military officer with the United States Air Force. Was enlisted for 19 years and then commissioned for another 15. So I've done a lot of different things for the military, for the police department, developed a bicycle patrol for the police department, developed plans, programs, and evaluations. I was a senior intelligence officer for the 111th Attack Wing out of Horsham, Pennsylvania. I've been married for 31 years to my wife, who went through the Air Force and the law enforcement officer journey with me. And we have a 29-year-old son who serves our community as an ICU nurse. I'm also the retired mayor of Cinnaminson, New Jersey. I found a love of real estate when I was running the Economic Development Committee. At 48 years old, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and realized I was doing it all wrong. And then I read How to Invest in Real Estate with Low or No Money Down by Brandon Turner. And then it was on. So yes, I'm an investor and licensed agent. I operate, like you said, in Jersey and Pittsburgh with single family homes. I'm a real estate investment coach for Tarek El Moussa and Homeschooled by Tarek.
It's
and then I'm making the move Tarek. I apologize. Making the move into commercial multifamily and recently closed on my first 6-unit deal. And that's currently under renovation.
And you just mentioned Brandon Turner, and you just got to meet him. How did that happen?
So a lieutenant colonel, friend of mine, Brian Briscoe, who runs another podcast called Diary of an Apartment Investor. I'll give him a shout out because he's fantastic.
Shout out.
We retired on exactly the same day.
Wow.
And he and I are both apartment investors. He is much farther along in the process than I am, and was having an Ask the Expert Q&A session and asked me to be a part of it. So I was very proud and happy to oblige, and got to have a great conversation with Brandon Turner and ask him questions that pretty much any investor would want. And that should be airing sometime in December.
And by having you on this show, I'm like one step closer to Brandon Turner. So Brandon, if you're listening, I love you. All right. So, Bud, I asked you to be on this show because I have specific questions. I'm a total dumbass when it comes to calculating commercial real estate. So first of all, define what the difference is between residential and commercial real estate, because there's multi-units in both. So explain the difference.
Yes. So to simplify this, I'll say it this way. Residential multifamily are 4 units and down. So if you have a duplex, a triplex, or a quadruplex, you are still in the multifamily, but you're in the residential realm, which means you use comps. Comps are generally based on emotion, and emotion drives the market in the residential world. When we're talking about commercial, we're talking about 5 units and more, and those are based on math, which we'll go over ad nauseum for the next 20 or so minutes. Essentially, and I'll paraphrase this very simplified, the net operating income divided by the capitalization rate, and I will explain all of that in a second, is how you determine the initial value or the expected value of a commercial multifamily property.
Okay, so stop there for a second, because I'm so on the residential side, and I'm used to when you mentioned it's based on comps. What you're saying is the after repair value or the value of the property is based on comps, and comps drive it, and that's emotion. So now Correct. You're saying it's a totally different game to calculate things. So let's start, or tell me if we should start here. What is a cap rate?
Okay, so if you're looking in a specific area, they're generally relatively similar in a specific area. So we just looked up Raleigh, North Carolina, specific zip code in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we came up with somewhere between 6 and 7% as a capitalization rate. In this case, we were using 6.5. The way that you can kind of determine that is if you can look at a recent sale of a property, see how much that property's gross potential annual income is, divide that by the value of the property's sale price, and you can determine pretty easily what the capitalization rate would actually be. So let's say hypothetically, you have a $144,000 gross potential annual income, and I'll give you that number in a couple of seconds, how we come up with that. And you divide that by the $1.5 million selling price in a particular area. Your capitalization rate, dividing 144,000 by $1.5 million, you're going to come up with a 9.6% capitalization rate.
So is that good or bad to be high or low? Like what's the
That
difference
would
there?
be a solid C neighborhood. And if you can do, it's a solid C building, let me put it that way. And if you can do renovations, depending on the quality of that building, to move it more towards the B and reduce that cap rate, you're going to increase the value of the property. So simply said, the cap rate is inversely proportionate to the price. So if we can take that 9.6 and make that a 7 by increasing rents, then the value of the property goes up.
Okay. And then you said C property. So I'm guessing this is a rating scale A, B, C, and D. What's the difference between those numbers or
Correct.
numbers,
So
letters?
when you're talking about somewhere in the 4 to 6%, somewhere, could be in the 6.5 to 7, you're talking about a solid A property into an A minus B plus area. So the 4, 5, and 6 are definitely A properties. You don't have a lot of crime. You have expensive rents. So let's take that into consideration. We'll call that, say, center city of Raleigh. Okay. The best part of the town, they're going to have a 4 cap rate. You start moving away from that best part of town and maybe getting a little bit of outskirts of that zip code. You may drop to a 5. You go a little farther out, you're going to get to a 6. You start talking about the hood, you're going to be in the 10s, 11s, and 12s.
You said the hood.
Yeah. If you're getting shots fired calls as a police officer in that area, that is a 10, 11, 12 guaranteed. It's
Gotcha.
Definitely higher.
All right. So breaking this down even more, you mentioned potential gross income. So is that what you said before?
That is, yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
So potential gross income, how do you calculate that?
So let's say we're talking about let's do some basic math here. So let's say we're talking about
Go slow. I've been drinking.
Not a problem. So am I. Right. So let's say we're talking about a 5-unit building, which is just on the other side of residential. You're in commercial. You're in that commercial marketplace, and you find a 5-unit.
So I have a perfect example because literally just last night we looked at a 5-unit in just outside the center of town in Raleigh. And I was asking you to help me calculate and go through that. So go from there. So we're using a real live property here. So it's 5 units.
Yes. We looked at the average rent for the apartments that you were talking about. Okay. And what we're looking for is if it's 2 at 1,100, 2 at 1,200, and 1 at 1,250 or something of that nature, or 2 at 1,000. Let's just call it 1,100.
Let's keep it simple. All of them make $1,500 a month.
Outstanding. Okay.
Yes.
So what we're looking at is you're taking all 5 units, you're multiplying that by the $1,500 per month that you're collecting from each of those units. And then you're multiplying that by the 12 months of the year.
Okay.
5 units times $1,500 times 12 months gives me $90,000 in gross potential annual income.
Okay.
Okay. Now we have to look at the potential that one of those units could be vacant. So being conservative in my initial analysis, I always use 10%.
Okay.
I know that in my experience, I'm generally closer to the 5% rule, but let's look at 10% so that we can see if we want to move forward with this purchase. So what that does is it takes $9,000 off the price, off the gross potential annual income, and that gives us an estimated net annual income of $81,000.
Okay.
Okay, pretty good.
That is good.
Looking good. Okay, so we take that, and the average rule of thumb for operating expenses. Now,
Okay.
operating expenses are your property taxes, your insurance, your maintenance, your management, your capital expenses, and things of that nature. What it does not include is your debt service. So if you take out a loan for that property, it does not include your mortgage.
Okay.
And when I say mortgage, I'm just talking about the mortgage, not the interest or taxes. Interest or taxes are operating expenses.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So we're going to take half of that $81,000 and assume that that is an operating expense. Okay. So that leaves us with a net operating income of $40,500.
Okay.
Okay. We've already determined that the average capitalization rate in that neighborhood is 6.5%. High quality, solid B neighborhood leaning towards the A. Okay. So it's a great neighborhood. So if we divide the 40,500 by the 6.5%, we wind up with $623,077 is the valuation on that property.
Okay. So it's literally listed for $600,000. So do we go under or?
Well, here's what we do. We reach out to the broker who has it listed. We ask for an O&M. That's an offering memorandum. It's basically 28 pages of information regarding that particular property. Out of those 28 pages, you may use 2. They are the numbers that are associated with that particular building. They're going to give you their best case scenario. Okay. Now we're going to take those numbers and we're going to dive deeper into what the prospective rents are going to be, what the potential for operating costs are going to be, and if it still makes sense. So let's say they don't come up with $90,000 in rent over that period of time. They're trying to tell us that the rents are, instead of $1,500, they're $1,600.
Okay.
Potentially. Okay. They're going to do that. They're going to attempt to make this look better, the best it can possibly be. Okay. So that's something that we need to take into consideration when we're talking about the offering memorandum. So we take that O&M and we do our basic due diligence. We start going through that process. It might take you 5-10 minutes. Then if the numbers still look good, even though you have doubts because it's the O&M coming from the broker and you've done a little bit of homework yourself, you can then request trailing 12, which is the trailing 12 months of operating expenses. And you can request a rent roll. Okay. Once we have that information, we have a no kidding observation into the last year on this property. We can make the determination of what their actual vacancy is. We can make the determination of what their actual operating expenses are. And if the operating expenses are higher than 50%, it reduces the value of the property. If the rent roll is lower than 90,000, it reduces the value of the property. We can then put in a letter of intent that we're going to file with the broker stating that we would like to put an offer in on this property at said amount. In this case, let's say we go in at $580,000, just to use a round number. Okay. In that letter of intent, they can accept it or they can deny it. If they accept it, you'll generate a purchase and sale agreement. You'll have a due diligence period. Okay. The contract, it'll have a due diligence period. Usually it's about 45, I like 60 days. That's beautiful if you can do that. If they don't want to do that, then you're definitely going to want at least 30, closer to 45 if they'll give it. Hopefully they do, because you need to inspect. You need to go through that thing with a fine-tooth comb, check the roof, the HVAC. Are they split? Are they, different units? Are there different electrical feeds to each unit? Different plumbing. There's a utility management system called a PUMS, which you use for water. And that basically shows what unit is using what, and then bills them directly through your property manager. The other thing that you need to determine is your property management, which can kill any deal. So absolutely. And if you have a bad property manager who's charging you 10% and the tenants aren't happy, you're going to find out very quickly as they leave your property and nobody wants to move back in.
Wow. All right. So you have said a lot, and yes, it is a tad killing my buzz, but it's okay because I'm getting excited here. So That's a perfect scenario. Now, here's the thing. This place was a nonprofit, and so the rents reflected in the last couple years are way below market value. So I went on, by the way, is it Rentometer or Rentometer?
I call it Rentometer.
I call it Rentometer. Someone at lunch today said Rentometer. I'm like, I don't know. Anyway, so I went on Rentometer and that's where I got the $1,500 number. So I was going through the numbers that way, as in projected. So does it make it harder, or is it to my advantage to have those previous numbers to justify a lower price for the house, for the building?
What I would tell you is this: it's very difficult to put a price on that property simply because there's no rent roll. And there is a rent roll, but the rent roll that they have is so below market value that it detracts from the value of the property.
Okay.
If you were to make an offer based on a $150 to $250 price per unit, that property is not going to be valued very highly. Okay. And there are other things that are going to come into play here. The tax rate and the tax forgiveness programs that are out there for nonprofits, your property taxes are going to be lower. Your insurance rates are, depending on what was in there. If it's a rehab facility, your insurance could be higher. If it is a halfway house, your insurance could be higher. If it is a home for wayward kids, your insurance could be lower. It really depends on what that is. But that's going to move your operating costs as well as the actual income for that property. So if you're doing evaluation based on those numbers, you're going to have a hard time. So That's when the negotiations come into play.
All right, now I'm going to throw a kink in it. What if I want, out of those 5 units, I make one of them an Airbnb and get triple the rent?
Right. That does not affect the price that you're going to pay for it.
All right.
That affects the value of the property after the fact.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's the difference. That's the difference.
That's huge because there's so many things to this. I'm not used to evaluating it, totally different, and doing these different numbers here. So this has been extremely helpful. And I know you're a busy person, but I do want to get to the second part of this podcast, which what makes you, Bud Evans, my work husband, a badass. And so I use the acronym BADASS, and we're going to do rapid on this. The first letter in BADASS is book. What is a book that made a huge difference in your life?
I just read Michael Hyatt's World Class Assistant. I use that to generate, which I believe you're talking to someone that I know very well, Bob LaChance, coming up here soon.
Yes.
So I use that to generate job descriptions for the virtual assistants that I'm using in my real estate company right now.
Very nice. All right. The first A in BADASS is advice. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best time to buy real estate was yesterday. Other than that, buy it now.
I love it. The D in BADASS is drive. What drives Bud to be successful?
I am retired. I have a lot of time on my hands. I love this stuff. Honestly, I would love to tell you that, it's about the money. It's really not. It's about generating time and the ability to do things. So I don't like working, trading time for money. I like generating income so that I can spend more time with my wife and son. And his future wife.
And growing facial hair.
And growing facial hair. That's absolutely right. I have a beard now.
So did he just get engaged? I just saw a picture or is that recent?
He's been engaged for a little while.
Okay.
Yeah, their wedding is set for this April. We are very excited.
Oh my goodness. All right. I'm going to keep going because I know I don't have much time with you, but the second A in BADASS is aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what are some goals you are currently working on?
The goals I'm currently working on, I've shut down my entire real estate single family portfolio process, and I've retooled it, and now I'm going again. So I've done all of the mistakes that I've made the first time, and the fact that I was running like a duck on the water. So on top, I looked really calm and cool, and on the bottom, my legs were churning like there was no tomorrow. So I've stopped that, taken all of the mistakes out of the processes that I was using before, reestablished the company. And Brandon told me to scale now, scale faster, scale first. And that's what I'm doing.
And you changed the name of your company? You have a whole new company.
I did. We went from JKS Homes. Ironically, I just used the duck analogy. It's called Just Keep Swimming, was the last property or the last company. And now because I'm retired, I'm using the AIM High, the Air Force core values of integrity, service before self, and excellence in all we do. So AIM High.
I love it. I love it. All right. The first S in badass is systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
Ooh, systems. I am a big systems person because I was a strategic planner for the Air Force. So I have organizational charts all the way from the top, the corporate structure, the organizational chart. We have our acquisitions team, our lead management team, our marketing team, our dispositions team. We have our property management systems all in place. We're using, a particular CRM, one of which I'm building myself, which is Infusionsoft. And we're taking all that information and we're putting together lead nurturing campaigns and really getting out there and trying to help people.
Wow. Goodness gracious. That's a lot. All right. The final S is success. What does success mean to you?
Success means to me that I have done everything I need to do within the company. I've removed myself from the company. I can buy an RV, drive anywhere on the planet, and keep in touch with my company on a laptop or my cell phone.
That is one of my goals too. I want to buy Mini Winnie. I have a picture of her inside my cabinet. I already have a parking slab going in the house that we're building. So,
nice.
Yes. So, Bud, I can't thank you enough. I know this was a quick one and I just had these urgent questions. I'm like, you know what? Let's just do this on a podcast because this will benefit all the listeners. And I'm sure it did. So how can they find you on social media?
Social media. Look at on Facebook, it's at AIM High Props. And then on LinkedIn, it's Howard Bud Evans, MBA.
Very good. And any websites you want to share?
Sure. budbuyshomes.com.
Excellent. I love that. Well, I appreciate you very much. Thank you, Bud. And that is all. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.